So, you've spent months, maybe even longer, getting your AI-powered command line set up with Claude Code just right. I mean, you've dialed in your instructions, you've perfected your skills, you've built custom agents, it's your baby. But now, you're looking over the fence at GitHub Copilot or OpenAI's Codex, and you're curious. The million-dollar question is, can you actually switch without having to tear everything down and start from scratch? Well, let's dive in and figure that out. We have all been there, right? You get excited about a new tool, you jump in, and then you realize, oh no, my entire workflow, all that time I invested, is completely locked into the old system. That fear of losing all that hard-won knowledge, the stuff that's encoded right into your project's AI setup, it's totally real. So today, we're going to get super clear on exactly what parts of your project are compatible, what you can keep, and what you're going to have to rebuild. Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll lay out the migration problem itself, why this is even a challenge. Then I'm going to give you the high-level verdict right up front, no waiting till the end. After that, we'll get into a super detailed portability breakdown, piece by piece. From there, we'll look at 4 real actionable strategies you can use. And we'll wrap it all up by helping you decide which tool is genuinely the right one for you. So what is the core issue here? I mean, these AI command line tools are amazing, but they've grown into these complex ecosystems. And each one, Claude, Copilot, Codex, they all have their own unique way of doing things, their own file structures, their own configuration formats, their own rules. And it's this fragmentation that creates a massive headache when you even think about migrating. It really feels like you're locked in. This quote from the analysis just cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? It's saying a zero-change migration is basically impossible. You just can't point a new tool like GitHub Copilot at your existing Claude folder and expect it to magically work. It won't. The underlying schemas and file paths are just fundamentally different. So a direct, painless switch, yeah, that's off the table. But that does not mean you're out of options. Okay, let's get straight to the point before we get lost in the details. If you're coming from Claude Code, how do the 2 big alternatives, GitHub Copilot CLI and OpenAI Codex CLI, really compare when we talk about compatibility? What's the bottom line? You know, this really highlights a core philosophical difference between them. GitHub Copilot is built in a way that's pretty similar to Claude. They both like to use Markdown for instructions and JSON for configuration. It feels familiar. OpenAI's Codex, though, it's a totally different beast. It's all about rigid TOML configuration files and a more locked-down, sandboxed model. And that fundamental difference makes porting your work directly much, much harder. And this chart just makes it crystal clear. On a scale of 1 to 10 for how easy this migration is going to be, Copilot CLI scores a very respectable 7.5. It's not perfect, but it's a much, much smoother path. Codex CLI, on the other hand, comes in at a 5.5. And that 2-point drop tells you this is going to be a heavy lift. We're not talking about a simple migration anymore. It's more like a complete architectural rethink of your project. All right, time to roll up our sleeves and get into the real nitty-gritty. This is where we break it all down. We're going to look at every single piece of your project setup, everything inside that .claude directory, and see what can actually survive the journey to a new tool. Let's start with some genuinely fantastic news. Your skills, you know, those super useful, reusable tools you've built for your AI, they are 100% portable. This is a huge win, and it's all thanks to the whole industry getting behind an open standard called Agent Skills. It means the most complex, valuable logic you've written can just come right along with you, with 0 changes needed. But now for the bad news, and this one hurts. Your entire session history, all those back and forths, all that valuable context, every command you've ever run, it's completely locked in. Each tool uses its own proprietary format, whether it's a SQLite database or some unique flavor of JSON. And what that means is all that historical context your agent has learned to rely on, it's gone when you switch. You're starting fresh. Okay, this matrix right here tells the whole story. As we saw, skills are green across the board, 100% compatible. That's awesome. Your main instruction files, like claude.md, are highly compatible if you use a little trip we'll talk about in a second. But look at all that red. Session history, custom agents, and lifecycle hooks are completely incompatible. You've got to rewrite them. Even your MCP server connections, the things that let your agent talk to other tools, are only mostly compatible. You'll have to tweak the syntax for Codex. So what's that little trick for your instruction files? It's something called a symbolic link, or a symlink. It's a super simple, super old-school file system technique. Think of it like a desktop shortcut. Instead of copying your claude.md file to a new location for Copilot, you just create a symlink. That way, both tools are reading the exact same file. No copying, no pasting, no worrying about things getting out of sync. It's just elegant. Now, when we talk about your custom agents, the situation is way more severe. I mean, listen to that quote. The schemas diverge violently. That is not an exaggeration. In Claude, an agent is just a simple markdown file. For Copilot, it has to be a structured YAML file. And for Codex, it's a super rigid TOML file. They're just not speaking the same language. This isn't a translation. It's a complete rebuild from the ground up. And this right here highlights a huge gap, especially around security and automation. Claude gives you 17 different lifecycle hooks, these little triggers that let you run code at specific moments, like before a tool is used. It gives you incredible control. Copilot and Codex, they offer drastically fewer. So if your workflow relies on those triggers for safety checks or compliance, that's a major risk you have to think about during your migration. All right, enough problem analysis, let's talk solutions. Now that we understand the compatibility breakdown, we can actually map out 4 very clear, very actionable strategies for how you can approach this migration. Let's go through the playbooks. So you've basically got 4 options. The zero change strategy is the quick and dirty way to just get Copilot running on your Claude project with minimal fuss. Low friction is a bit cleaner. You create a shared folder for the stuff that's portable. Clean migration is the rip the Band-Aid off approach, where you fully commit to the new tool. And finally, there's the single source of truth layout. This is the gold standard, really, the recommended long-term solution that lets you support multiple AI tools without ever duplicating your work. So, after all of this, how do you actually make the final call? The right tool isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. It really, really depends on what your number one priority is. Is it making your life easy today? Is it long-term security? Let's bring this all home. This table really sums it all up. If your main goal is just the least amount of friction, the easiest transition, then GitHub Copilot CLI is the hands-down winner. It has a similar architecture, a similar mental model. It just feels more like Claude. But, and this is a big but, if your absolute top priority is long-term security and hardcore engineering rigor, then that heavy upfront cost of moving to OpenAI Codex CLI might actually be worth it. Its OS-level sandboxing and strict rules are built for that. And that really leaves us with this final critical question. The choice you make between these tools isn't just about features. It's a fundamental strategic decision about your project. So are you going to architect for today's convenience, for the path of least resistance right now? Or are you building a foundation for tomorrow's security and predictability? The answer to that question is what will ultimately determine your migration path.